This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library.
Enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for.
If you had asked me this question a little while ago, I might have had a different answer to today. And the question really is in the title: is it worth putting expensive pickups in a cheap guitar? And that's what I want to try to get to the bottom of in this video. I'm going to do some playing here. All of these guitars are relatively reasonably priced, for me at least, because I bought the K-Line second hand for about £800 in about 2018. This guitar here is a Ibanez Roadstar, which is an 80s sort of Japanese guitar that was in my loft for you know, about nearly 2 decades, like a long time. And you know, I think I bought it for £100 back in the day and then wrecked it. And then there's also a Sire S7. Now, maybe in the comments you might want to drop in which pickups in there to you sound best or sound cheapest, whatever you feel like, and we'll talk about it. one thing for me that I've kind of had in mind really was that pickups are pickups, right? And that, you know, how much difference really is there between them? And I'm not about to start. I get offered to do these sorts of things occasionally, and it's a bit like, well, how do you reasonably do an A/B of pickups? Because there's so much time that passes between you having the pickups in, because I'm not good with a soldering iron, and then you replaying, and like I don't really like playing the exact same parts, or not good at it anyway. And so it kind of becomes a tricky thing. And it's kind of like, well, I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm especially not an expert on pickups. So for me, it's just been one of those things where it's like, well, if you don't like the guitar that you've got, maybe you just don't like the guitar. Would pickups actually improve things that much? And then this was the first thing that made me think, actually, yeah. So prior to this, I have a yellow K-line that Charlie Allen has, and I took that guitar to Monty's up in Cheltenham for them to set it up. The first guitar that I took up to them was the K-line Springfield with Lollar Dirty Blondes in it, and they offered to change pickups in it or do whatever I wanted, and I was like, just leave those pickups in there, I'm really happy with them, they're fine. The K-line had Klein pickups in them, and I was less, like, I didn't have the same attachment to that guitar. So I was like, all right, try something different. And they put in these pre-65 pickups. And I found that guitar, I just absolutely loved the way it sounded. And so when it came time to put together this one, with the help of my buddy John Martin from down the road, I kind of thought, well, what pickups, if I could have any single coils in there, would I choose? And I thought, actually, yeah. Experience-wise, let's put in some Monty's. As I say, this is not a terribly expensive guitar. But the thing that I really like about these is that they're just articulate. Now, I spoke to John Martin about this as well. He said there's a really strong signal coming from these, which is good. And like what he does is kind of actually balances each pickup so that in theory you don't get huge, as in like height wise. So like he's gone and just checked that there's not big volume changes between them. And obviously Monty's, these are handmade sort of boutique pickups in the UK. And so that, first of all, I was then thinking, right, well, that's actually quite astonishing. Like, I'm really, really impressed with, of course, like John's setup has a big part to do with it, but in terms of what you hear and what I hear when I listen to it back and find that I like the sound of this guitar, like a lot of that is coming from the pickups, right? And so that immediately sort of made me think, well, you know, I've maybe been a bit hard on this idea, you know, like pickups are pickups. Then this guitar here, which was a parts caster that I started to build. So this is a body from GSP Basses and Fretboard Forum guy. I bought used like 2019, 2020. And then I started finishing this body and then moved house and stuff and kind of abandoned it. Then I found this all parts neck on eBay, which came across aged, And I had like most of the other parts ready to go for this guitar. I just hadn't finished it, and I was never really intending to. And then I kind of thought, well, this is a little bit wasteful, and because of the success of the Ibanez Roadstar, I said to my buddy John, who is available to do work on your guitars if you're looking for this sort of thing, I've got something that could be something, like if you think. And he said, yeah, like if you've got all the bits that it needed a scratch plate specifically made for it, because the one I got wouldn't fit. And he said, do you have any idea of what pickups you're going to put in it? So I contacted Monty's, and we decided, well, I think the suggestion really was partly because I played Charlie Allen's vintage ES335, and it was kind of surprising to me, like this is a 60s ES335, that he's had the pickups changed out for these Monty's retro ones. So that to me was like a bit of a, okay, these must be pretty good then. And then, so I said to Monty's, could I have a set of them, and could you put together a loom? And you know, you never really know what you're going to get with a parts caster guitar. You know, luckily I have a luthier who's skilled to help with that side of things, because it needed a nut put in. You know, he's assembled this essentially. And then this was another scenario where it's like, actually, like, I'm not usually even a guy who likes humbuckers. But this, like, I immediately plugged it in, and it was like, wow, are these really humbuckers? Like, it was just none of the things that I've normally found with humbuckers, where it's like a little bit dull, or because I'm a single coil guy really, or like a little bit throaty. It's just kind of. And it has totally sort of given me like this shift, where I was chatting to Andy at the gig the other day about this, where because Andy's got like creamery pickups he really likes, and it's kind of, when you find something that works for you, it's kind of like a little bit of a situation where it's like, I'm kind of happy to know that at this point, because it's like, if I ever had a question like, could I improve one of my guitars with a set of Monty's pickups at this point, like whether it was single coils, I put in those pre-65s, or if it was humbuckers and I put in these retro winds, I'm pretty confident that pretty much any guitar that I put them in would be moved somewhere towards my preferences by doing that sort of thing. And I don't know how many of you might have had a guitar. This has not happened to me tons, where I didn't love the pickups. Like maybe the original PRS DGT that I bought, that I tried, it was kind of just like a bit of a okay sound. Then I can remember there was I built a black Strat, and I put in some Chris Buck signature pickups in that, and never really felt like it worked for me. And I now just think, well, I would just put in those Monty's pickups, like if it was a choice overall, and just be confident that actually I really like the way those sound. So that's kind of Strat pickups handled, and that's humbuckers handled. Tele pickups I'm not so sure on, but I know where I'd start to look. So anyway, that to me, because this is obviously another inexpensive guitar really, alongside that Ibanez Roadstar, and I would definitely say, you know, especially when it comes to actually what you hear, and I think for me what I feel with these pickups, which is again a difficult thing to get across, but it sort of feels like I can be expressive on them. It feels like if I dig in a bit more, I get a little bit more back. It feels like there's more chime to these pickups than some other pickups that I've tried. It feels like the EQ is a bit more balanced than other pickups that I've tried. It feels like these humbuckers aren't honky. To me, that is kind of the point of like expensive pickups in general, right? Or, you know, boutique pickups. Just find the thing that maybe works better for you than some of these stock options. I think of things like the PRS Silver Sky SE or the Sire S7 or bits and pieces like that, or maybe even some Yamaha guitars where it's like not exactly what I would choose. Like maybe it's slightly more honky, maybe there's more, you know, whatever, higher output, whatever the thing is, less spanky, whereas these ones seem to do that thing ideally for me. So I'm kind of happy that exists. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've got thoughts on your favourite pickups, or if there are some cheap pickups that you think really hit above their price point, because maybe there are some really great cheap pickups out there that are worth knowing about too. Cheers for stopping by.